When we set out to create River Lake Church, we knew that Glasgow didn't need another church. It needed a different church. I remember day one, I had no clue what I was doing. I had no clue what was next. Really, all I had was this empty desk and a calendar that was kind of laid out in front of me, taped on a wall, and it just had one Post-it note on it on Easter Day, and it just said launch day. And that's really all I knew, that we just needed to launch on Easter and that we would figure out everything else in between now and that day to make it happen.
You know, when I think about our first Sunday and I think about Mildred opening up MJK to us and the opportunity that we had to all come together and share what we've been doing for the last few weeks, visit, hug, catch up, just feel such love and emotion, and then to settle in and to have our first service. And I think all of us knew it was something so special that day. We didn't know what it was going to become, but we knew we all wanted to be a part of it. And I hope I never forget that feeling of that first service.
My favorite memory, the first memory was the very first time we started. And that was just about this time last year when we met at MJK. And to me, it was just almost like the Titanic survivors. It just felt like we were in a life, floating in the water, and we all got in the same lifeboat. And it was so great to see some familiar faces that were friends and friendly, and some people I didn't know, but they've all turned into family over this past year.
It was fun, and it was fun to look around and see people who were excited to do something new and to start something great.
It was, well, it was pretty stressful because we were in this tiny room. The roof, you know, we didn't have a roof, so anything that we talked about could be likely heard in the service. And so I know at one point, you know, it was a struggle to get the kids to, for it to be fun and meaningful for them, but also quiet so that the adults could, you know, not be distracted in the service. So, you know, that for that few weeks we were there was just a real struggle for us.
Yes, so when we were looking for a place to meet, and there were a number of options on the table, I mean, we were talking about lots of different places, most of them, all of them actually non-traditional, and so Ralphie's came up as an option. And I remember being invited to go and look at Ralphie's, and I'd never walked in there before, didn't even know where to park. And when I walked in, I just did not have the vision for it.
When Ralphie's was first mentioned, it was kind of weird. I didn't grow up in church, but I still had an idea of what a church building would be like, and a bowling alley and a skating rink did not fit that. And all I could imagine was hearing pins being knocked down in the middle of a sermon.
I thought moving into Ralphie's was, you know, it's a fun center, not necessarily a church. So, you know, being raised in a traditional church, you know, I thought it had to have a steeple on top to be a church.
I kind of had it in my mind, maybe a school or something like that. And my initial reaction was, you know, we'll go and we'll look it out because we want to be different, and that's different, absolutely. But I just thought, no. I mean, I had been in there once before, and I just thought there's no way that's going to fit the DNA of what we were looking to create for our church. And I remember walking in and thinking to myself, this is it. I think this is the place. And I didn't even see really where we would meet. It didn't really matter where the adults would meet. What I remember thinking is walking in going, kids will love this place. Kids will beg their parents to come to this place to have church in this fun center with blow-ups and arcades and a skating rink and a sound system. And I remember thinking to myself, I'll make everything else work out as long as we have a place that has an amazing kids department, because we already had an amazing kids director we just needed to find the place that we'll make everything else work out, and we did. And it really, Ralphie's has become part of the DNA of who we are as a church.
I do remember one Sunday where I had walked up to Pastor Nick for something, I don't even remember now, and he had a look on his face that many of us recognize, and I knew something wasn't right.
So 2 weeks before Easter started, we did a dry run in our auditorium, and it was done. Everybody was excited. It was going to be an amazing day. All the teams were in place. Everybody was ready to go. The mailers were out. And Mike Cable, who was our worship leader at the time, who was doing an awesome job, came up to me and said, "Nick, I got some bad news. My wife got a new job, and we're moving to Florida." And immediately, I just kind of thought, okay, well, we'll figure it out, you know. Like, I'm thinking 3 months, 4 months to move down there, whatever. And he said, we're moving Friday. And I'll never forget going behind our stage where we had a closet, listening to Mike do an amazing job at worship and just thinking, God, this is kind of mean. Like, what are you doing here? We got 2 weeks before Easter. Everybody's ready to go, and I don't have a worship leader. Like, people are going to show up, and it's going to be terrible.
And I remember thinking, no, we're 2 weeks from Easter. No, he cannot have just resigned. What are we going to do? Are we going to hire I mean, it was just that flood of emotion and a flood of questions. Megan, his wife, had just done the announcements and was incredible. I have no idea what was preached on that Sunday. I sat the whole time in the auditorium listening to Pastor Nick thinking, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? We've got to have a great worship leader for this church.
Just one day out of the blue, I just decided, you know, I'm just going to text Nick and see how it's going. And I'm sure what the text was just like, how's the church going or something. And then I get a text back that says, can I call you?
That next Sunday, Jason came and played, and it was awesome. And he played on Easter, and it was even better. And he's the perfect guy for the job. I mean, it really was. He was the guy that I originally invited to be a part of the team, and he couldn't because of his job. And it was as if God just kind of had some placeholders for people to get us through where we needed to be, to get him to a place where he needed to be so that we could come back together and do this together. And it's one of those moments I look back on now. At the time was terrifying and scary and frustrating and confusing for me, but I remind myself in current times of trouble that, you know what, God's got this, that he's got a plan, and that even though I don't understand it, he's working out all things. And my job is to pray and to rely on him and take that next step of faith.
Oh, the lead up to Easter was beautiful chaos. It's just our small group that started this, and Nick told us to look around because this would be the last time that we were together as a group, and that it was going to explode from there. And just vividly remember standing there and looking around at everybody and thinking how God brought an awesome group together, and what he was going to do now was going to be amazing, and it exploded.
To see that parking lot full and to worry about getting spaces and just to work, and as I've said before, one of the best visual events I remember is walking in after we got everybody seated, and of course I was in the parking lot, so we're kind of the last to come in sometimes, and to not have a place to sit for some of us coming in back, it was a great feeling. And looking at all the other volunteers and members, their face, the smile, you can't fake it. It's almost hard to explain it, but you sure could feel it.
Man, that day, I mean, got there early, set up, just didn't sleep all night. I mean, it was, I don't think I slept any the night before. When we got there, we set up, and kids started coming in, and more kids started coming in, and we ended up with 78 kids. You know, we did a glow-in-the-dark Easter egg hunt. That was just awesome. And the kids, we had plenty of eggs. It was awesome.
So there was a moment for me a few days before Easter where I really wondered what Easter was going to look like. I mean, I'd stood up and I'd said all the right things, I think. I'd cast a big vision. I had faith in God. We prayed big prayers. But I remember asking Lisa, do you think anybody's going to show up? I mean, we've done all that we can do, but like, do you think anybody's going to show up? And I will never forget the moment where Lisa and I were on stage, and I just looked out, and we had bright lights in our eyes, so it was kind of a little bit hard to see, but all the chairs were full. Our volunteers were standing up. There was background music going on. But just what God did, I mean, he far exceeded our expectations. I had prayed privately the whole time for 250 people, and we had 278.
But the thing I never, ever want to forget is the opportunity that we had at the end of the message where everyone had their nail, and they were given the opportunity to put a nail in a metal bucket and to release themselves of things they had been carrying around. And I was behind the drapes, so I didn't see anybody stand up. I was back there praying that the message would be touching someone, and I heard one nail drop, and then I heard another nail drop, and then nails started dropping and just resonating throughout the auditorium, and it was a powerful, powerful moment that I experienced differently from a lot of people because I didn't get to see it. I got to hear it.
You know, Easter Sunday was the start of it for me, where I just knew that this was great things were going to happen with this church.
After Easter, it was amazing. People were on cloud 9. We had another big day a few weeks later, Mother's Day. Brought in a photo booth, had some crazy shots of a whole bunch of people. It was really a lot of fun, and church seemed to be going well. And then the summer hit. And I, in my amazing leadership, effectively grew the church from about 278 on launch day to around probably 90 in the summer. And it was in that season that I was really questioning what we were doing. Not whether we were in the right place, but it really wasn't taking off like I thought it would. Things weren't going as well as I'd hoped they would go. And as great a start as we had, everybody had told us that, you know what, Easter's the bad time to start a church and the summer hits, and they were right. And there was a Sunday where we brought in like $500 offering. We had like 80-something people, and I knew at that moment we had to do something different than what we were currently doing.
The Crash the Chatterbox series was probably, my favorite series this year. I had read the book, so I knew that it was a life changer.
I remember sitting down as the creative team with a creative group of people and coming up with the ideas for that series, and I think it was really our best series that we did. From the invite cards to the cards in the seats to the videos to the handouts that we did, and it ended on an amazing note with the baptisms and the last part of that series, based on the book Crash the Chatterbox, reached so many people, and I think, like you said, it was a turning point in how we created our services and how we are intentional in reaching people in a creative, engaging way.
That series was, as you say, it's kind of a defining moment for us. We obviously had a gimmick that we wanted to exploit. We wanted to make sure that people will realize that, hey, we're giving away headphones, and you can come and you can win some headphones. If that's the only thing that got them in the door, then that's great, because, you know, they came and they heard. The messages we're all about things that we all struggle with. You know, just that noise in your head that people, you just can't tune out sometimes, and just being able to tune that out. That's, you know, and that way you can actually hear what God is trying to tell you. We knew that we had a great message. The series is going to be great. You know, everybody worked together as far as coming up with, you know, great ideas and just, you know, what we can do to keep people involved. You know, get their attention and just show that this is a different church. You know, it was a defining moment for us, I think, and it's kind of the way that we look at our philosophy now. You know, we'll do whatever we gotta do to get people in there, because that's the news that they're going to hear in there is worth whatever it costs us to get it.
Nick and I went to TSC in Bowling Green to buy a large tank to dip people into, which I had my concerns about. So we got the tank, we brought it to my house, we cut the top off, and Nick performed a baptism in my backyard. I had neighbors driving by looking at us doing this, and they asked later if it was the ice bucket challenge, and it was not.
Man, that service, it was just the getting ready for it that morning. You know, there was a problem. I believe it might have been my husband not turned the valve on or off or whatever, flooded the place. So, you know, that's how it started. But man, when I come in and into the service, it was beautiful. I mean, the whole service was just absolutely beautiful. You know, when someone got baptized, just the claps, the cheers, the yells, everyone was just so excited. It was really amazing to witness that.
Baptism service was a great day. To see 4 people varying in ages be baptized was a really awesome day for the church, especially for me, being connected to one of those people who goes back to a moment where God really impressed upon me to meet a need to one of those people, and really in that moment not realizing what God had planned for this person who was connected to the person where we met that need. And through our church reaching that person that day, seeing God come full circle and this person be baptized and saved into heaven was a really awesome moment. To experience that through our church and see that for what God impressed upon me weeks earlier, I had no idea what God had planned, but for this person to be baptized was a really awesome experience.
My favorite moment for River Lake Church is the baptism of my 12-year-old. That is when she came to me to let me know that it was time, that she had been saved a year prior to and had not shared that with us, and a flood of emotions came at that point. But then to actually see her raised in that moment was just a whole second flood of emotions for our family. That is a moment I will never forget.
Just the energy in the room. You could feel God's presence there. Everybody was excited. And, you know, we had our little comic moments where things didn't run exactly as smoothly as we expected to. You know, the flood before the service was interesting. But everybody just pitched in and got it cleaned up. Just the whole service was just this energy there, and I don't know, it's just something I'll always remember.
Great service. Everybody there that I think saw it was touched. it didn't matter that the floor was running over with water. It didn't matter if we had lights that were in the water. Nobody was going to get hurt. We had planned on that a little bit. But, it's one of those moments where we look back and go, that was a crazy mess, but it was fun.
We wanted to do a community event. We wanted really just to bless children and families in the community. And so we brainstormed a little bit, and the idea of Candy Jam was born. And really the whole idea of it was to open up Ralphie's to the whole community and let them experience everything at Ralphie's for free. We were going to add a trunk or treat to it, where the kids could dress up in costumes if they wanted to, and do the whole trunk or treat. It really was just to provide something to the community, just because. It was no other reason than to really just bless the community.
Crazy, in a good way. Getting there and setting up my trunk, but then watching people show up an hour and 15 minutes before we could even open our doors was wild. Just the constant stream of people that went by our cars to give candy to was just the best thing I've been a part of since being in ministry.
You know, when the idea first came out, we were excited, all of us, and we planned way in advance. I mean, my job was to head up the parking team. We had a great group. I'm glad a couple of extra came in at the last minute to help. You know who you are. So I thought we had a really good plan. I mean, sketches of the parking lot, and I'm just talking about my specific job and how we're going to lay things out. And when you get those plans, you think it's going to work just exactly that way. So, but there's that one moment when you're wondering, is anybody going to show up? Are we going to have enough people? And nobody knows, but we had a pretty good idea it was going to be full. I think Robbie was pretty sure it was going to be full. He had a pretty good idea, and he was right. So
we had planned for 400 kids. We had candy bags for 400 kids. Thinking, I think the whole time, that's more than enough bags. I mean, we were thinking that, we might have 400 people total for the night. We had probably close to 100 volunteers from the church. I mean, everybody stepped up. Everybody stepped up. They donated candy, they decorated trunks. We had 20 trunks. They dressed up. The volunteers that we had in the church that came together to put that on was really, really amazing. 30 minutes before the event started, I looked out and people were lined up all the way back to the back of the parking lot. And I thought I was going to be sick. I was so nervous. And at that moment, I just remember having a moment with God and just saying, this many people, God, it's all about you. You've got to help us. You've got to, guide us in what to say and do to all these people that are going to come through here. The smiles on kids' faces, on parents' faces. It was incredible to be able to tell parents, some of them were asking, what's this cost, and to be able to say it's free, and just to see the look on their face was amazing. We set out to bless the community, and nobody was more blessed than I was. The smiles of the children's faces, and the look of gratitude on the parents' faces was really just a blessing to me. And to be able to do that just because that's what our church is all about. I love my church.
In 2015, River Lake Church, I expect to see more souls saved for Christ, more amazing baptisms. I expect us as a church to give more than our cups can contain, that God will give back to us as a church if we give. There's so many things more as a church we can do that God is going to do for us if we are faithful to Him, and I believe it, and I think this is just the beginning.
I just expect to see miracles every day, because if you expect it, you see it.
In 2015, I don't know what can top 2014, but I know it will be, and it's only going to get bigger. I don't even think that we can see what's going to happen. He's got so many plans that he blew away our expectations in 2014, and I think he's going to triple that in 2015.
My hope is that people that have, for whatever reason, have never been in church or have left church, finds our church. I'm excited for people to see it, to experience it, because I really believe if they give it a chance, they'll love it.
2015 for River Lake Church is going to be about dreaming big for God. People talk all the time about the cup that we offer God, and God kind of fills that cup, and I've been so convicted that I haven't been dreaming big enough for what God has for River Lake Church. And so 2015 is about replacing the cup with a barrel and placing it before God and saying, okay, God, fill it up. I'm not sure what that looks like. I'm not sure what you want for us, but you know what? 2015 will not be a year that I look back on and go, I didn't dream big enough. And so I'm not sure what it holds, but what I do know is it's going to be amazing. It's going to be big. It's going to be exciting. And the best really is yet to come.